and I believe it was the first time. It wasn't the last time, guys, but it was the first time she asked me, "What are you doing?"
He's the mayor of Athens. He's the mayor of Athens. It's a family tradition, guys.
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by Lou Wood, also known as Fripp Dawg, or simply my dad. We talk about his Georgia story, the state of college football, and we answer questions from you, our listeners. This episode has been a long time coming, and I hope you all enjoyed listening as much as we did recording. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at MyGottaPodcast. Now, let's join the conversation in progress.
So, do we have a bourbon for the Fripp Dawg episode?
I do. Here, I'll go first. I'll go first so I can also do, if anyone's tuning in for the first time, we have a special guest with us on this episode of My God a Podcast. So John and I, as always, but with us tonight we have Lou Wood, aka Fripp Dawg, aka my dad. So cheers,
aka Ponda's famous husband.
Honda's famous husband.
The most important part.
So cheers. Welcome to the podcast as a guest, Dad. And
Yes.
I tonight have the Whistle Pig piggyback 6-year. That's what I brought tonight.
Nice.
Nice.
All right, Dad, what do you got?
I've got Buffalo Trace.
That's a good one, JP.
Regular old Buffalo Trace.
Do you have any Nutter Butters?
I do not have the Nutter Butters, unfortunately. I actually thought about that today and completely forgot as I was doing Valentine's Day shopping for the kids and for the wife.
Amazing. All right, Dad, what do you got?
I got Weller Special Reserve. I thought it'd be appropriate for when we all got together in Charlotte at the Clemson game a couple of years ago. I had my first pour from a guy I had never met, didn't know me from deep center field. I believe his name is John Tweets. And I just walked up to him and said, "Can I have a pour of that?" And he said, "Absolutely. That's why I brought it." So cheers.
Amen.
Cheers.
Man,
And
we're starting off strong with the first Charlotte mention.
all right. And the elite cup. Show us that cup again that you have, like the wooden cup.
That is a gift from your sister Melissa and your brother-in-law Greg. It's called Oak Sip. It's an Oak Sip cup. You can't see I've got a clear ice in it. Didn't get it to age too much in that oak while I'm drinking it, but it is a pretty cool gift from Melissa and Greg.
Nice.
Awesome. Is this
my nightly pour, by the way?
Is this a shout out for Working Web Media?
Yes.
Reminder, if you need any help with your online presence, you need a website, head over to workingwebmedia.com/dogs, and they will know that we sent you their way. Always thankful to the folks at Working Web Media who made the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com.
Cheers.
Cheers indeed. That is a cool cup. That is super cool. I don't know how they get it so glossy.
JP, why don't you kick us off with what we like to talk about when we have guests on?
Well, Lou, as you know, we're all big Georgia fans here, and the question that we always ask every guest that comes on board is, what is your Georgia story? You're probably going to have a unique perspective, being Jim's dad, but what's your Georgia story before Jim?
Before Jim and Melissa.
And Melissa. Yes. And the lot.
and Ponda, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. And the famous Ponda, I should say.
Yes.
Shout out Coach Trill. So it started when I was a child. I had two uncles that were huge Georgia fans, and we would go to the Georgia Tech freshman game, which was played in Atlanta every year, and it was for charity. So I did that many years as a child. And then when I was 15, 16 years old, we got a color television. And believe it or not, that was a big deal in 65, 66. And the first game that was coming on, and invited some friends over to watch Georgia versus Alabama.
Wow.
And in 65, 66, Coach Dooley's, I believe it was his second year, and we beat Alabama on that flea flicker play, which I believe is now my got a podcast. It's on there somewhere. You guys have that.
That has been gift. That has been gift. Yes.
That is a gift. Okay. So that play right there, I mean, we've all run the flea flicker in our front yard, our backyard playing football. And that was the beginning of my obsession with Georgia. And that was the moment, 15, 16 years old, I said I was going to Georgia. So it started as a child, but really hit when we beat Alabama with the flea flicker. And there was no replay back then because we're not really sure if his knee was down or not, but we don't care. We won the game.
Wow. So that was 65, was it?
Yes.
Okay. So you've got a long storied history with the University of Georgia. So you fell in love with Georgia at that time. So fast forward, like walk us through, like you get to Georgia, like what's the story from there?
Well, I started I was a freshman in 1968. So first year, we won the SEC, of course, since I showed up as a freshman. That was great. Unusual year in that we had 2 ties. We don't see those anymore. I believe we had, I can't remember how many losses this. It's a long time ago, 68. I know we lost one SEC game at least. But we won the SEC at Auburn that year, which was my first away game. And one of my high school teammates was the field goal kicker, and he kicked a couple extra points and a field goal. So that was kind of cool my freshman year. Year also, ironically, speaking of Clemson, our first home game was versus Clemson. And I'm trying not to do a sorry Carter here. We kicked their butt. Is that okay to say that? Okay. We beat up on Clemson. And then my first freshman year, my first Georgia-Florida game was back then you wore ties and blazers and stuff. So, and it rained, y'all, the entire game. Cats and dogs. We did actually beat the Gators that day, 50-something to nothing, 51-2 to nothing. So that was my initial Georgia-Florida game as a student. So that was kind of cool. And then we finished the regular season by crushing them yucky bugs in Athens. So that was my freshman year.
And where did Ponda come along in the journey?
Oh, great question. So I had a red shirt senior year as a student.
Amazing.
So I was a red shirt junior, and I was social chairman, so I would have the pledges at the time. I guess it was okay to be a pledge back then. It's not anymore. We would have at the fraternity house them bring young ladies over, especially good-looking ones, and she came over a couple of times with some friends of hers from the Northeast Georgia area where she was from, and she showed up a couple of times. One time was quite aggravating. If you want to know the truth, I was sick as a dog, sitting on the couch at the fraternity house, watching Shenandoah, 101, 102 fever with the flu. And she comes in with a couple of the girls, a couple of the guys, and they're laughing, having a big time. They sit up on the back couch. And Shenandoah is sad, okay? And these people are having a great time, laughing, yeah, ha, ha. And I'm going, y'all be quiet. So they proceeded not to be quiet. so that was kind of the end of that night. I just went on up to my room. About a month later, she shows back up after a intramural basketball game, of which I was on the basketball team. And I came in late, went downstairs at the fraternity house, got my tray, and it was steak night. And so I'm coming back upstairs with steak, baked potato, salad on the tray, and a sweet tea, and get to the top of the stairs, and there's a black and white tile floor in the foyer, and this girl with hair down to her fanny in the back, beautiful, short shorts, knee socks, walks up to me, the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life, walks up to me, doesn't say a word. She takes my fork, she takes my knife, she cuts my steak, she forks it, she eats that bite of steak, she puts my fork and my knife back on my tray and walks away. That is February of 1972. Okay. We were married in January of 1973.
Excellent.
Okay. So that's how it started. Not a word. I mean, she didn't say a word to me. She just turned with that beautiful hair and everything else and turns and walks away.
And everything
Y'all,
else.
she didn't say a word. She didn't say a word. John,
That's
can you believe that?
the moxie. She's
the moxie.
The moxie on this woman.
So, yes. Well, and it's still there, I promise you. 51.
Oh, I know.
50, yeah. So then randomly, spring break comes up, and I'll hush after this. Spring break comes up, and I wasn't going to spring break, but had 2 or 3 fraternity brothers come in and say, "Who's going on spring break?" I said, "Well, I don't think I can go. I really don't have that much money." A couple of guys said, "Well, I've got $40. I've got $60. I've got $80." I said, "Well, I got a car." So we hop in the car and drive to Daytona for spring break without a reservation and show up at this motel, random motel, and get in that night. And there's like, we couldn't find a room, so we found out some more fraternity brothers, and somewhere between 16 and 18 of us stayed in this one room. I don't remember the exact numbers. It's one of those. There's a mess of us. So it cost
I think
us
we've all been there.
Yeah, $2 a night per person. And so I get up the next morning and late and go down to the pool, and dang if that same girl who has never spoken to me is not at the pool.
She heard you were cooking a steak, I'm sure.
Well, that came next. So we started up a conversation. We talked for a couple of days at the pool, took a walk up to the beach, had our first dinner date at Steak and Shake.
Who asked who?
Here's the deal. It was me. So it was me. I was a little not nervous, but it was like, we just look. She took a bite of my steak.
I was just about to say, she's just taking steaks.
Okay?
She's breaking hearts and taking steaks left and right.
Exactly. So I took the leap of faith, and we went up to Steak and Shake, and that was many meals ago. That's how it started.
I love it, man. I hadn't heard that story, so I appreciate you telling it. Man, I'm sure that there's a lot more color that we could probably add offline, but I love it.
My goal is no sorry Carters. This is the anti Chris Marler episode.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, then fast forward a few years, more than a few years, but because my Georgia story is my parents, right? I mean, they met there, they went to school in Georgia, graduated school from Georgia, and I always tell people that like I was wearing a Georgia hat in my crib, and and to bring it back, I have now, if you're watching on YouTube, I have found this replica of my dad's hat that he had when I was a little boy, and we've got tons of pictures of, me doing whatever. I always had this hat on, or your hat on, the original one.
Yeah.
It was I just had my birthday, and so this is one of the things my parents got me for my birthday was this replica of that hat, which is pretty cool. So kind of how it started and how it's going for me in the Georgia fandom.
That's pretty good.
That's amazing. What a good feel good family story. I feel like Lou, I gotta be honest, I feel like you should write a screenplay for this.
Well, it's a pretty good love story, I'll have to admit.
Yeah, better than The Notebook, that's for sure.
Yeah, seriously, that movie's depressing.
Mm.
I don't know. I know we've got a ton of listener questions, but I don't know. Maybe before we get to that, just Dad, just give your perspective on, as we like to say, hey, remember that time we went back to back? And like for John and I, it was basically like that was the only thing that we've experienced. But for you, you've experienced that in the 80s and probably figured. I know. So John, I'll tell you. I don't know if I've told you this. I know you've told me that when y'all were like in school and stuff, y'all would be like, oh, we're going to the Sugar Bowl again. Like, can't we get another bowl? And like, when we were in college, we got back to the Sugar Bowl. It was like such a big deal. And I remember y'all telling me that story, but like, be grateful for what you have while you have it. So
yes,
I don't know, just your thoughts on that journey.
Well, up to Herschel. So we graduated, went to Macon, became season ticket holders. After we graduated, back then all you had to do was pay for the tickets. It's nothing like today, but we were indeed season ticket holders, and we were good coming up to Herschel, but we got really good. Yes, we had Irk Russell. As a defensive coordinator, he always had a scrappy defense. The offensive line got really good, got progressively better, good timing. So when Herschel came in, and it's hard to explain, having been there I was graduated, but a season ticket holder for the Herschel days, and you see the film, the video of course, My God, a Freshman call, which might be a good name for a twist for a podcast, but
could be.
So yeah, I remember that was in Tennessee. We were not, and Pond and I did not go to that game in Tennessee, but we did play South Carolina at home. And you've seen the film of Herschel running to the right, actually headed towards the bridge that no longer is a bridge, but that's where he was headed. And there was 3 guys that should have had it. And so that was the first time I got to see it in person, that the man should have been tackled. And from that point on, it was like 11 on 11, but 11 defensive people were looking to stop one man. And basically they couldn't. So it's an error that I'm so glad that I was around. We did move to North Carolina, where you were born. Mm-hmm. In 80, we had season tickets, so we came back that year, and the next part of the next year, and then his last year, we did not have season tickets because I took a promotion up to the home office. So, but seeing that greatness, and I know there's a lot of talk about GOATs, and I didn't get to see, the Charlie Trippies and the Theron Sapps. So I know Charlie Trippie had dinner with Charlie, but never saw him play obviously live. But he's supposedly one of the greatest athletes ever. My money's on Herschel. For sure. I will say there is a very close second now. And unfortunately, he's going to the pros this year. But to see the execution of toss, sweep, right and left, I know that sounds silly, but they executed it unbelievably. All he needed was a crease, and he took it, and occasionally he would run over people like Bill Bates.
John, now you know where I got my love of the toss sweep from.
Well, I think we all got our love. Toss sweep.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And our good friend JD, Jeff Dantzler, we got a fullback. We're going to, set the edge with the fullback. Brad Johnson in my day when I was back in school.
I feel like you casually dropped this in the conversation, but hold on. You had dinner with Charlie Trippie?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was when Pond and I retired and moved out of Roswell and came back up here near Athens. I looking for things to do. One of the things I did was join the Athens Touchdown Club, and so I didn't actually eat with him, but I sort of did, if that makes sense. His wife sat with us. And he was back and forth. He was one of the speakers at the thing. He was pretty cool. He just very conversational for one of the greatest probably Bulldogs of all time. And we were talking about retirement. He asked me what I was doing. I'll tell him I was retired. And he asked me, "What do you do to stay in shape?" And I said, "Well, I used to run, but I walk." I said, "Well, how about you? You look really good." And I think at the time he was, a spry 92, something like that. And he said, "I don't work out. I hadn't worked out in years. I work out in my yard. I cut the grass. I trim the shrubbery. I pick up limbs. I pick up sticks." And so from that point on until recently, I said, if yard work's good enough for Charlie Trippie, it's good enough for me.
I like it.
I've
got friends that don't even do their yard work. So shout out to Charlie Trippie at 92 doing his own yard work. That's funny, man. That's cool, man. Not very many folks get to have dinner with the old guard. So that's one of those things that there's not a whole lot of folks that can probably say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
That is cool.
I will say this, at that dinner table as well, he came in late. Is one of the football players came and sat down, young player, and we were talking. He's very, very kind. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And so I said, so you played football for Georgia? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, that's good. I said, what's your name? He said, Orson. Said, that's good. Orson what? It was Orson Charles, of course. One of the kindest young men I think I've ever met. So it was a great evening to meet one of the younger folks sandwiched in with one of the oldest, greatest of all time. So it was a wonderful evening.
That's awesome. What is the Athens? Is that still a thing? I feel like I've heard that over time. Like, what is the Athens Touchdown Club in distinction to the university?
It's a separate one. I haven't gone there in years.
Okay.
Because if we're not at a home game, we started staying at Fripp more. So I just kind of stepped out of it. But it's just local people, and they meet at Athens Country Club, and they'll have a guest speaker, Phil Sims, all kind of former players will come in, and former pro players, not necessarily Georgia players, but
yeah,
they have it's like a banquet setting.
David Johnson used to, I think he still does. They'll broadcast. They'll do Bulldog Friday night. They broadcast from the Touchdown Club, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah,
okay.
David did. Yeah, I did see him there.
That must be where I've heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they do that Bulldog Friday night thing,
Awesome.
which might be part of the podcast, the Georgia one. I think that might come in there during the year. I'm not sure. I know I said we had to tell those listener questions. I actually kind of want to get to the first one, because the first one has kind of like some stuff about just what's going on in general with college football these days. So we'll start out with our buddy Hug Dog. So Jason, first off, he said that it was outstanding to know, Dad, that you were going to be the guest. He said, Lou, would you share what L and A means? Everyone needs to know. It meant so much to me when we met to discuss. And then we'll get to the second part later.
Okay, it's going to be about midnight before I get through this, but okay.
This is my kind of podcast. It's fine.
My kind of podcast won't go off the rails. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. It's a leadership model that I developed in my 3.5 decades with J&J. LNA, to answer his question, stands for love and abundance. And as I moved from being a sales manager to a sales director and covering, instead of 2 states, like a little over a third of the country, and I became a leader of management and salespeople, I needed to come up with something that was different, that would last, as I brought in different people. And so one of the things about sales is people are fearful, they are scared, they don't want to share. And part of that is they want to make sure they get theirs. And so my learnings over decades was to come up with something where we could work together as a team. It's kind of like what Kirby's doing now, so to speak, with the why, and they're having all those sessions with each other and how they pull for each other. So taking away the X's and O's of selling, I came up with this, and love and abundance really means about caring and sharing for each other, and sharing, because what I found is when you give and you share, the more you give and the more you share, the more you receive. Now that's true in life, but it's also true in our leadership perspective. So without getting into a 45-minute keynote presentation of the entire leadership model, love and abundance is LNA, and it stands for caring and sharing, which in essence means care enough to speak up early and share without fear.
Nice.
That's it.
Nice.
I like it. We can all use love and abundance.
I sometimes, Dad, when you'll post some of your things, John texts me like some of your tweets. He's like, "Wait, Jim, what is this?" Like from some of your leadership model stuff. I'm like, well, I'll have to have my dad explain that to you sometime. So that was the first one. And then I think just the rest of it was kind of honestly one of the things I just wanted to talk about in general. And Jason provided it. So he said also, what's your opinion on today's college football environment? He called out, NIL, portal, celebrity, etc. And is it sustainable? And he said, thanks, guys. LNA, Jason. So the thing that has happened also since the end of the season is this the potential to maybe even have players classified as employees, which would give them the ability to collectively bargain and things. And I've seen some people take it like way off the rails, like, oh, well, this could mean it's basically a pro sport and they're like affiliated with the school. They're not even necessarily students. I think that was like College Football Nerds or something. I was like, this is more off the rails than your like predictive model for games. I don't know that we're going there, and I certainly hope we're not, but it is very different. I think Seth Emerson actually had a really good article recently, and one of the things that he was pointing out is at some point, it was more you could I guess get away with, and you could make the statements like, well, the players get their scholarship, they get their education, when the coaches and the schools weren't making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and it's harder now that pot has gotten bigger to stand by that. So, which I agree with, but I feel like we got to figure something out. because the sustainable piece, I feel like what we're doing right now is not sustainable.
Yeah, I'm curious, Lou is a titan of business and as an alumni of the university, like, from the old guard, if you will, what what's your perspective?
Great question. I thought about that without sounding like, get off my lawn, get out of my yard.
The apple doesn't fall too far
from a
from the
business
tree.
perspective, from the industry I came from, we call people who jump on things quickly early adopters, and that's not me. I'm not an early adopter. I like to look at things, observe things, and I agree with what Jim was saying about what Seth said. We're way past the dollars now. I just don't think it's sustainable, to Jason's final question, based off the way things are going now, nor do I think it will continue to be the same. I also think the look, and this is different than NIL, but it does bring in the power groups of the SEC and Big Ten looking to get together. That could change the dynamics as well. But I don't think the big money folks of the SEC and UGA, which I'm not a part of, but I can tell you that won't last forever. I just don't see that amount of money being thrown out, especially in places. An example would be A&M, Texas A&M. That there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of oil money out there, but at some point you don't want to throw your money away, and they're getting close to doing that. Hence, coaches sitting on the beach. I don't know, was it 70 million?
Yeah.
Fire me, please.
Yeah, that's what has interested me about, donating to basically to NIL. And one of the things that I keep hearing people talk about is, eventually someone's going to want a return on their investment. And what's interesting to me is the original concept behind NIL was to prevent things like, the video game. I mean, that's actually where it originally came from, the whole Ed O'Bannon thing, right? So if you're in the video game, you should get a cut. Agreed, right? And it was things like that, and kids doing commercials, and being a spokesman. I think a lot of people have referred to it for years as the Olympic model, right? If you're in the Olympics, you get sponsored by Wheaties, you get money because you're on the Wheaties box or whatever, stuff like that. But it's morphed into something very different from that. It's not just that. And I feel like that model actually makes more sense because you could theoretically get an actual return on your investment, in that it's marketing. It's part of your marketing budget and you're bringing people to your business. But I feel like the way people are talking about it now is it's the return on my investment is my happiness because my team won, Right. And so but then if your team doesn't win, it's going to go away a lot faster. I feel like someone needs to figure out how to get this to actually get people actual gains off of this from their investment, as far as that goes. I don't know. That's kind of probably where my head's at.
Well, the problem is that you got some of those business owners that are those people that value the wins and my team's winning, and that's why they're doing some of these things, is because now they can write it off as an expense or as a charitable contribution or whatever that is, however the collective is structured, right?
Right.
I guess I tend to lean that way as well. I just, for the life of me, I feel like that we've let the we've let the weasel in the hen house kind of thing. There is no going back at this point, and especially from my perspective, where I feel like it's ultimately going to net out is the kids are never going to win. I feel like the deck is always going to be stacked against the kids. As much as we want to think, as much as these kids want to think that they've got the strong arm, you're going to start seeing schools say, well, the Ole Misses and the Colorados of the world, where they'll just go to the portal, and if you want too much money, then I'll just go find one in the portal and cut you loose, and good luck to you. And you can transfer schools, every year. Trying to chase that dollar or whatever. And then to Kirby's point, it's going to work both ways, where if you want all this money, you want this contract or whatever, it's a virtual contract, or we'll cut you loose. And
Yeah.
at some point, I feel like that the contracts are going to have to come into play, and that's why I keep saying, when we're in the text threads, like, just bring on the contracts, because that's where we're ultimately going to get is people are going to be contracted, and I feel like that actually would probably help the situation, because then kids would have to actually analyze where they want to go, and they're going to have to actually commit. They're actually going to want to go. They're actually going to have to be invested in going to where they want to go, as opposed to, okay, you're giving me 200,000 this year. I go out, I perform. Where's the next check? Where's the $1 million? Where's, and then they can cut loose. They can cut bait after a year. Well, if you start bringing contracts into the situation, then things get a little bit more equitable, I guess, for lack of a better description. And not only that, but it brings everything above board.
Yeah. That's true. It's like it's kind of above board. Like, it's not as low as it was, but it's still not like public details, which is, I guess, in general fine. But yeah, I feel like the transferring thing is the crazy thing to me. Like yes,
Yeah.
coaches can leave, but a coach doesn't, in general, isn't changing every year like some of these guys are.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be sustainable from like fan engagement. I mean, like basketball is in a much worse spot than Georgia basketball fan. It's like every year you have to relearn the roster. It's like, I don't know, who are these guys? I don't know who these guys are. I feel like the Cleveland Indian fans in the beginning of Major League. Like, I don't know who these guys are.
As soon as they bring in the contracts, then you're gonna have to start talking about buyouts too. Like,
Right, exactly.
we're gonna be tagging kids with buyouts.
Yeah, seriously, that'd be crazy.
Anyway, I hate
All right.
everything.
Well,
I hate everything. Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn, Lou.
We definitely agree it's not sustainable. All right, let's see. Greg, tailgate Greg, as we sometimes affectionately call him. Dog stand forever on Twitter. What was the first Georgia game Fripp Dawg attended as a student? Also, was there a tailgating scene when he was an undergrad, or were all pregame activities at fraternity houses?
Ooh.
Okay. Well, I mentioned the first home game was Clemson.
Yeah.
My freshman year.
Fortuitous.
Yes, isn't that the truth? And with Greg asking the question, that's awesome. Tailgating in Charlotte. No, there wasn't much of a tailgate, especially for us. I can't speak for. I'm talking about undergrads now. I can't speak for the older folk at the time. Most of the games were like 12:30, 1 o'clock, I think, back then. And so we were lucky to get to the stadium by kickoff. So, and y'all know why. So, so most of our stuff was after the game. We had multiple different types of parties, band parties, food, etc., were post game as opposed to pregame. But they were, for us, it was at our fraternity house, not tailgating on campus.
Okay.
At what point, like, I guess you've been there through the years, right? At what point is there any time in the past where you can recall where it was like, man, tailgating's really gotten to be a big thing?
Good question. So when Jim was started school, and I forget what dorm you were in, Jim.
I was in Russell.
Yeah, Russell. Okay. So
5 East.
We tailgated. We would leave Roswell at like 6 o'clock in the morning, no matter if the game was a noon kickoff or a night kickoff, and we would set up, and we would have multiple families back then, and literally we would do breakfast, lunch, and dinner if it was a night game, or breakfast and lunch, or breakfast and meal afterwards. And you'd bring out the grill and satellite. We would do TV, so that's pretty big production for us.
People today don't understand the difficulty of pointing the DirecTV dish at the satellite. Like, all these YouTube TV people have no idea what that was like.
Absolutely not. And your brother-in-law, Greg, Melissa's husband, he had the magic touch.
He had to touch.
He was in charge of the last part of getting the dish exactly right so we could get ESPN or whatever. So, that was a big deal. And that was the beginning right there of Ponda's famous bean dip.
Ooh, the origin of Ponda's famous bean dip is Jim's freshman year?
Yeah, right in there.
Wow.
It was good times. I would park my because I had a deck Russell deck pass, so I would park my truck on the curb the night before, and then they had a key, so when they would drive up from Roswell, they would move my truck into the deck. It would give them a place to park and drive into the grass where we used to tailgate.
Where did y'all tailgate at?
Right outside of O House, so like right there between
Cresswell and O House?
Yeah. There was like so initially there's like this ditch. We called it the grassy knoll. It was all grass. And so we would tailgate down there. I think I've talked about this before because like we tailgated there until like then the baseball team started tailgating next to us and the baseball team was cool. It was who was it that was crazy? It wasn't the baseball team. It was like, I don't know. There was like another sports team that started tailgating with the baseball team and like they were crazy and like we had to move. But it wasn't the baseball team. They were cool.
Yeah. And we had to vacate.
Yeah. So then we moved, like there's a little really small parking lot right there by the O House, like between the dorm and the dining hall on the backside. And we would park right there. And there was like kind of bark or whatever. But it was still that was where we tailgated all the time.
That's
and John,
funny.
that's why I would be missing on game days at fraternity tailgates sometimes because I was over there.
I was just about to say, like, it's funny to hear about all this stuff because a year later I get there, right? And so,
Yeah,
a year later I was probably tailgating in the area where you left because I went and tailgated at that area between O House, Cresswell, and Russell, and that was where the festivities started for the famous Tennessee game.
oh yeah, yes, the goalpost game.
That was the goalpost game. We would be there. And there was also a time when I got my face painted down there. So like, yeah, like the crew that I hung out with down there before the fraternity, that's where they tailgated at, and there were definitely some fuzzy moments, let's say.
I think
So
it was
you left and went to another area of tailgating, and I was right behind you.
I think it was the swim team. I think it was the swimming and diving team. Like they were wild, and we had to move.
Jim, I think if you remember, who's become a good friend, but he Chris Carter and his military folks, that was part of the group that kind of shoved us out a little bit too. So they were.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because the guys that I hung out with were ROTC guys. There were military guys in that area.
Yeah.
It could be. That could be them. Chris like does ROTC. Is he still like positioned at Georgia? Is he still doing ROTC stuff there? Do y'all know? I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah. Well, he is. He's up in northeast Georgia around Hartwell, doing that. But I will say that they were friendly with us, and the baseball team got pretty rowdy. I will put it
so
that
maybe it was
the
baseball team that got rowdy.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they were good guys. I will agree with you there, but they weren't beating up our cars and trucks with baseball bats, but they did pretty much everything else.
Fair enough.
Wow.
Okay.
Good times.
Greg did close out by saying, by the way, I hope I'm as cool as Fripp Dawg when I grow up. So I had to throw that in there for Greg.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Let's see. All right, Sugar Ray for UGA, which his handle is back. He had changed his handle for a while, I think.
Right.
He said, I have a question for the old man. Ask him when he was in high school, what was his team called? I'll hang up and laugh. Listen.
Okay, so Sugar Ray is, we were both from Macon, Georgia. And ironically, his mom was the grammar school, and that's what we called it back then, principal, where I went after I left. She took over there. He was a couple of neighborhoods away from where I went. And so I went to high school, and people really feared us when they heard our nickname. I mean, we were in region with what was it, Valdosta Wildcats, the Moultrie Packers, the Columbus Blue Devils, the Warner Robins Demons, and then there was us. We were the Lanier Poets.
Ah.
We struck fear in people's the Lanier Poets.
This is a joke.
No, it's not. So the school, so John, it was an all boys school, 8th grade through 12th grade, military, ROTC, junior ROTC. And it was named after the Georgia poet Sidney Lanier. So hence the Poets.
I see what they were doing. They were super poetic about it.
We struck fear in all of our opponents before we even showed up.
Bow down at our pros.
Thank you, Sugar.
Amazing.
I assume that it's not still that, right? Like something's changed over the years.
No.
Yes.
As years went on and we had schools come together, it became Central and Northeast and Southwest. All schools came together. So it's a melting pot.
Okay. So no longer Poets.
No.
No more Poets.
I think it's the Central Chargers now, I believe.
Central Chargers? Okay.
Yes, I believe.
This is like the Fripp Dawg version of the know your foe.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So ask y'all can ask Big George. I don't know if he graduated. I think it was Central when he was there. So I think they're the Chargers.
Oh,
we will have to bring
amazing.
We will have to bring that up. All right, Brett Belding. He's got two. Brett always sends in a two-parter. First, what was the most memorable game you attended as a family, not including Indianapolis, and why?
Well, I guess clarifying question. Family, is this nuclear? Is this extended?
I know. I was actually thinking about that too because I was trying to think for me, like, would it be one that was like Kim and I and the girls? Because there's something like that, but then there's like my parents and like Kim and my sister Melissa and Greg, right? Because I don't know that we've ever been like all of us together, with all the grandkids and everything. So
that's a great question. So I think we need like 6 answers there, but
how about we let Fripp Dawg answer? Let's let Fripp Dawg define the question.
So I think about that. So first off, with the 6 of us, we have 6 season tickets. I would say we got a couple of Tennessee victories. One with John Powell and the Goalpost.
I was just about to say, is the Goalpost?
Yes,
we should have interviewed Fripp Dawg for the story.
And then the last one where Tennessee came into Athens and was number 1 in the nation for I think like 20 minutes or something like that. and so the family was there, adult family was there, but I think the kicker, I don't think Kim was there, but I'm pretty sure it was myself, the famous Ponda, Jim, Melissa, and Greg when the Notre Dame game, the night game, that was an awesome game of which Jim's mother and sister nicknamed him the mayor of Athens. Is that accurate, son?
That's accurate. I had a good time.
Wait, what?
I had a good time.
I need some clarifying statements here.
I was I went to the game at Notre Dame, right? And when I came back, I was just while I was there, I was just blown away by how nice everyone was. Like everyone was like ridiculously nice. And so we were like, we'll see you. We were making jokes like we'll see you in 2019 because the score was 20-19. We beat them 20-19, and then they would come back. So we kept making that joke on the way out. But I was like determined to give the visiting Notre Dame fans the same, welcome that I was received when I was in South Bend. I may or may not have stop by Reagan's tailgate before the game with my friends from out of town, and we may not have been at Creature Comforts before that. And so we were having a very good time, and I got a little too over enthusiastic about welcoming the Notre Dame fans.
You were overserved.
And so I was like talking to everyone, and so my mom and my sister said that I was the mayor of Athens.
The mayor of Athens.
He did not meet a stranger that night on the way to the stadium, I will tell you.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What year was this? 2019?
Yeah, that was 2019. Yeah,
Okay.
2019 went over Notre Dame. Yeah.
That's awesome. I just want to point out for the listeners at home that Fripp Dawg's answer, 2/3 of which I was there for.
Yes, there we go.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, that's good.
I'll add one. I will go with Georgia's first ever SEC championship game victory. I'll go with that one. So that one was those six. So it was Kim and I, Melissa and Greg, my mom and dad. We went down there for the whole day, did the SEC fanfare. And I remember actually we were watching at fanfare, I think it was Miami and Virginia Tech, like praying that Virginia Tech would beat Miami so that we could go to the national championship game if we won. So we made a whole day out of it. And as we said, that kind of took the lid off the program. I feel like that was kind of the beginning of what's landed us here. We were all that came together. So I'll go with that one.
That's a good one.
One takeaway I have from this conversation is that you guys need to have one game where everybody goes to.
I know. Yeah. I don't think
you need a family reunion at Sanford Stadium. Can you sort that out?
We do need to do that. The funny thing is when we're all together, like it's that's one, there'll be like a kid who will like start the descent of like, I don't really want to go. And then it permeates throughout all the grandkids.
Tough cookies. You're going, Ella. All right, you're going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful thing.
All right. The next part of Brett's was what is your favorite Honda recipe besides the famous dip?
Oh, this is a great question, Brett.
Okay, so I have like 30 answers there.
Let's turn to chapter 5 of Ponda's famous cookbook.
Yeah, let's do it. That would be great. So Ponda's famous, we don't eat a lot of desserts, but I'll start with 2 of those.
Lies. I've seen the posts.
Yes. Oh my God. So, Ponda's famous coconut cake. Now,
I've seen this one. This is great.
It is the best of the best. If you don't like coconut, then fast forward on the podcast. But it is the best coconut cake. She actually got that from her mother, but she's developed it over the years, and so now she and Jim's sister Melissa, they both do a fabulous job. So that would be my number one. But also, I'm a pie guy, and she can. Ponda's famous key lime pie from scratch, mercy. That is some kind of good. So I'll go with that. And as far as meals, I mean, come on. She's a Northeast Georgia girl, raised on a farm, learned how to cook when she was 12. So how about if I could have, collard greens and black-eyed peas and cornbread, maybe country fried steak with gravy on it and mashed potatoes with gravy. Yeah, I can go with that. That's one of Ponda's famous meals.
Well, she knows a good steak when she sees one.
Ain't no doubt about that. Actually, now she even talks to me while we eat steak. So it's a kind of a pretty good thing after.
It's a full circle. It's a full circle.
Full circle. I will say shrimp and grits. She makes...
I've seen the shrimp and grits.
Yeah, but she puts goat cheese in it. So she makes this goat cheese grits, and we do a shrimp together. Oh my goodness!
Sold.
So okay, and one more. I'll just stop after this one because I could probably do 30. But in the summer, we stay between here and Fripp, and so we get a lot of fresh vegetables. And one of the best meals of Ponda's famous meals is an iron skillet, fresh okra, fresh tomatoes, and fresh corn. And she cuts the corn off the cob and cooks the okra, the tomatoes, and the corn in an iron skillet until it's cooked well, and another iron skillet pan of cornbread. Yeah, that'll do it.
I've seen Ponda's famous collection of iron skillets firsthand.
Yes.
I remarked to Jim, I said, this is quite a stash of skillets.
Yes. We have a few.
The best is like now that John has stayed there a couple of times. John likes to cook with Ponda's famous
I've
cookware.
cooked with Ponda's famous cookware. I was cooking bacon, and she came in. Oh, y'all are cooking.
I love it. I love it. And you know the code.
Jim, what's the code? Holy cow!
I love it.
I was gonna say coconut cake, so there's that. Actually, I'll add one thing that hadn't been said, so I could be different. Biscuits.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Good breakfast. Good breakfast in the household growing up.
I like how Fripp Dawg led with we don't eat a whole lot of desserts, and he immediately proceeds to list off 2 desserts.
Well, I will say this, Jim. We've had biscuits the last 3 mornings, so
there we go.
Mighty fine.
That's quite the flex. Suck it, Jim.
Hey,
yeah, seriously.
Hey, John. I'm 51, working on 52 years, bro.
I like it.
Let's see. 51-7 GATA. Do y'all remember where you were on that historic night? Reggie Ball threw the ball away on 4th down back in 2004. And he gave us the pictures. And apparently 51-7 GATA was down on the walkway, right, hanging out by the hedges. So that's where he was. So
he could have caught the ball.
I was just going to say, I couldn't tell the perspective, but like, was he in the vicinity?
He was definitely in the vicinity because that's where he threw it.
Yeah,
that's where he
really
threw
close.
it.
That's amazing.
I mean,
this is definitely a Wood question because I do not remember.
I mean, I'll tell you, right? I mean, we were in our seats. So 51-7 GATA, where you come and say hello to us during the game, that's where we were. We were there. We were in our seats, same seats. So we were where you always see us.
That's right. That's right.
That's amazing.
I will say, I remember I was absolutely flipping out because they didn't change the down in the stadium on the scoreboard. So like, when Reggie Ball like complained and it's like the scoreboard said they're down, I mean, he was not wrong. It did it had happened like a down. I can't remember. It was either first or second down. They didn't change it. So it had been going on for a while. And I was losing my mind. Like I was thinking was it the Colorado like 5th down game or whatever? Like I thought that was going to happen. And they changed it like right before the ball was snapped. So I do remember that. Oh man, that's still crazy. Let's see, Rich, which I believe this is Hushton Rich. Rich changed his handle as well. But so he said, how is rehab on the shoulder, Lou? Give us a shoulder update.
It's going good. Thanks, Rich. It's slow. I still cannot throw the deep skinny post. But I'm getting to where I can chip and putt. So
there we go.
Once the weather continues to get better, we're planning on headed to Fripp in the next couple of weeks. And so I'll do some chipping and putting, and then I'm going to do wedges for a couple of days, then 9 irons, et cetera, a couple of days. And they said after about 2 weeks of that, I can play 9. So thanks. I'm looking forward to that.
If you need someone to make sure that you're only playing from 100 in, you know who to call.
Yes. I've done that.
John, before my dad had his surgery, we were at the beach and he was like, my doctor said I can just play, like I can play wedges. I can play from 100 in. I was like, all right. He was like, so make sure that's all I do. Don't let me tee off. I was like, okay, Dad. First hole, he gets out his driver. I was like, Dad, what are you doing? You're like, well, I thought I would try. I was like, you told me to make sure you only hit it at 100 yards in. So I made him put it back in the bag. I teed off and then we drove up and we dropped closer.
Yes.
So
Dad.
Fact there.
literally, first of all, it was amazing. It was amazing, which is totally how I would be too. Let's see. Wash Rick, and I don't know the answer to this. Ask him how to keep from getting stung by jellyfish and man-o-wars on Fripp Island. Happened 2 years in a row now. Let's say that hasn't happened to I don't know. I haven't been stung, so I don't know.
Hopefully this is humorous, and that doesn't come across as flippant because it's not meant to be. But he should sit up on the shore and the beach with me and sip wine because I don't get stung sitting up there.
Listen.
But really, and that's it's a real good point. July and August, when the water gets more still and there's less wind and the temperature is higher, those 2 months, don't remember the guy's name, but if you come in, especially late July, August, early September, those suckers are out. So I just tippy-toe that time of year.
I was just about to say my limited exposure to the Atlantic and the Gulf is that it really just seems like it's dependent on what time of year you go when those suckers are out.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not fun. Panda, the famous Panda, has been stung. Jim's sister has been stung. I think a couple of the grandkids have been as well, but
yeah,
I have not. Yeah, I avoid it like the plague and stay up on the beach.
The beer is colder up there.
It is.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right, man. Yeah,
Man of war though. That's like big boy jellyfish. I thought that those things, like if you get stung by those, like you're in trouble.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I've been I'll knock on wood. We haven't had that happen to us personally. Just family members keep those away. Let's see. All right, Bubby Dean. Bubby said, as a UGA student, did Lou travel to any SEC away games? If so, which SEC school did Lou first visit? Any memorable moments to share that won't get him in the proverbial doghouse?
Okay, the first part, let's see. First away game was
Auburn, right?
Auburn, but I went to the Georgia-Florida game, but yes, that's neutral. But so that freshman year it was just Florida and Auburn.
Okay.
Stories, not getting in trouble. Okay, so Lord. Okay, son, here we go. So I was social chairman of the fraternity for 3 years, elected back to back to back. So I guess I was pretty good at it.
You had a three-peat as social chair. Sorry.
I had
continue.
a three-peat. Yes,
Three-peat.
That's true. So Pond and I, we met at spring break. We started dating, whatever that was, into March, April. We were in the quarter system back then, not semesters. And as social chairman, I came up with the idea of
free beer at the beach before 4.
Well,
that's an inside joke for Jim.
That was promised to us. We were lied to once, and we're still holding a grudge.
Shout out to Todd Bannister.
Holy cow!
I did not lie to my guys. So,
Take that,
I came up with this idea of having what I call "To Hell with Finals" party at the end of spring quarter, and our fraternity house was on Millage Avenue, not too far from 5 Points, and 5 Points Bottle Shop, which most people know where that is. The owner was also an elderly at the time. He's probably younger than me at that time, but was a fraternity brother as well. So we got to put things on account. And that end of Hell with Finals party, we were having it in conjunction with sororities. So thought it was a pretty good idea to bring sororities in so we could mix. And so we did parties with all sororities, but I think it was one of them that was on Millage, maybe the Zayas, Katie's, I don't remember. But anyway, So
can't go wrong.
Yeah, couldn't go wrong. And so it was as JD Jeff Dancer said, it was a Chamber of Commerce day in May, and not a cloud in the sky. And after I got through with my finals, I went and picked up 3 kegs, which I thought would be good for us. And so it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and it was such a beautiful day. Bunch of guys were out on the front porch. I said, let's tap one. So we tapped a keg and out on the front porch. And so I had it in a wheelbarrow and put ice around it. And we finished the first keg and tapped the second keg. And took another hour or so. We tapped the third keg, and it's getting around 5 o'clock. And
this is all before 5 o'clock. You finished 3 kegs?
Yes. Well, we were starting it. No, we only finished 2.
Only. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Totally reasonable.
Yes. Well, it was 100 of us, so to do the math.
Makes sense.
Sorry, Bubby. And so I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to drive to go pick up Honda, so I had my little brother drive out to Nowhere Road and pick her up around the 5 o'clock hour. And so traffic started backing up at the light there on Millage Avenue. And I thought I would be kind. And so I took the keg in the wheelbarrow and took it out to the Millage Avenue and started pouring beers for people that were backed up in traffic. And so I walked out into the road and was handing out, beers, and I think probably Dixie cups back then, plastic cups. And about this time, 18-wheeler stops backed up in traffic, and how you did that, and he pulled his horn, and so of course I had to take him a beer over to the 18-wheeler. And about that time, my little brother and Ponda come driving up as I'm walking across Millage Avenue and stepping up into an 18-wheeler to give the guy a beer. So Dave was my little brother, and Ponda Park, and she comes through the front of the fraternity house, walks down the walkway to Millage Avenue, and I believe it was the first time. It wasn't the last time, guys, but it was the first time she asked me, "What are you doing?"
He's the mayor of Athens. He's the mayor of Athens. It's a family tradition, guys.
So I took the wheelbarrow and the keg and took it back up to the front porch. So that's kind of Bubby. We were been dating about 2 months. So the good news is, like 6 months later, shout out to Wise Dawg, football season, and I had decided I needed to ask Ponda to marry me. And as social chairman, I took my job seriously, and we had a party on Friday night and Saturday night before a home game. And unfortunately, I was overserved by someone. And so I was going to ask her to marry me at the 5 Points, which I thought was apropos, at the Waffle House.
Beautiful.
It's no longer there, but it was there then. And
you're going to scatter, smothered, and covered.
Yes. But I couldn't put the words together. So I told her, I have something to tell you, but I think I need to wait till tomorrow. So
I had something to say, but you can't say.
I've heard this story, but seeing John react to this is so good.
So good.
So we eat.
This is like the greatest series,
and I still couldn't function. So we sorry, son. So
no, I've heard this. This is not new to me. I'm laughing at John laughing.
Yeah.
So good.
This is a TV series.
The next day is a home game, and I think I went and picked her up at Nowhere Road. I don't think I sent the little brother that time. So anyway, we get back to the fraternity house, and out front of the fraternity house the next day, because I had filled up at Waffle House, I felt much better. I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. So even after wheelbarrows and kegs, 6 months later, she did good.
Amazing.
So that's it, Bubby.
That is amazing. What a great story. Did she ever tell you what she was thinking when she took that bite of steak?
Well, no, not really. Well, we've had some discussion of that, but it's a great question. I will say, this is one of Panda's favorite words. Okay, she said I was cute. Okay, so I had just, I think, John, you may know this, but I played in a rock band for 8 years, and we had just stopped months before Panda and I decided. Excuse me, when Panda and I met, and so I think she liked my hair. It wasn't as long as hers, but it was damn close to Allman Brothers long at the time. I will say that.
I don't know that I've seen these pictures of you with the long hair.
I'll send you some.
Yeah. We need to get the Twitter. We need to expose this to Twitter, right?
Yeah. And so
rock band Lou.
I will say this. So part of it was the guys that she was coming over there with, friends from Northeast Georgia. When she said I was cute to them, they didn't say I was, but they did say, "Nah, he's got a girlfriend." So I didn't. I mean, I did before, but I didn't for quite some months. So I don't know if there was them trying to keep her from getting together.
Shenanigans were going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I've seen the pictures, Lou. There were shenanigans going on.
Maybe. We had a big time, I will say that.
That's awesome.
I'm glad we made our way to that, John, so you got to hear that story.
I mean, what I hear is that the mayor of Athens runs in the family.
Exactly.
It does, and I will say at that time, I think probably, now to think about it, those lying, sneaking fraternity brothers of mine telling her I had a girlfriend, she did tell them, and I think one of the reasons she came up and cut my steak was she had never seen this girl. And the reason why was she wasn't there. So there was no girl at the time. So I think she took the initiative with the steak cutting incident because of that.
What year was this?
72.
72. Okay.
So she was at that time 19 and I was 21 before our birthdays.
Robbing the cradle.
Yep.
Oh man. All right, we got one more.
Okay.
And even though it kind of has this, but kind of doesn't, I'm going to do this anyway.
Oh my God! Going to put glasses on it.
There's kind of an over-under, but Coach Trill submitted a question. I will say I was not happy when during the Super Bowl, CBS was promoting the Big Ten on the SEC. I didn't like that.
Yeah, no, seriously.
On CBS, I was like,
yeah.
I was at a Tech fan's house, or Tech alumni's house, watching the game. Old friend, and when that came on, I was booing, and the kids were like, "Why are you booing? Like, it's just a TV commercial." And my tech friend said, "It's because it's no longer the SEC on CBS," and I agree with him.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. All right, so Coach has he's got a few questions. So First one, favorite Billy D. Williams story.
Okay.
Coach has the inside info. Coach knows what's going on here.
I was about to say, the questions are coming from inside the house.
So let's say this up front. Since this is My God, a podcast, let's get the picture here.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
First, Coach Trillbill, his kindergarten teacher was Panda's famous kindergarten teacher. So Coach Trillbill's kindergarten teacher was Panda. So they go back a ways. So let's just make sure that's just a beautiful story to me. That Coach goes way back. And I have a picture, y'all, of him in kindergarten. So if anybody wants to see it, I got it.
We have the class picture. The class picture.
Please share it.
Okay. Sorry, Coach. I got it. I'll do that. So I think, man, so I have so many wonderful stories about Billy, but I think the main thing is he's a great artist. Literally, he draws. He's a photographer and an actor, but he was also a really good father. And part of that summer is his 15-year-old son, Corey D. Williams, came to Macon, where the movie was made. And
I say, let's make sure. So the movie we're talking about was the Bingo. I sometimes butcher the name, but the Bingo Long Traveling All Stars and Motor Kings, I believe, is the name of the movie. I think I got that.
That is correct. That's perfect.
Okay.
That is the name. And so I, at the time, 70, I think it was 76, was working in our family sporting goods store, and the summer of 75, I believe it was. So we heard that this baseball movie was going to be made down at Luther Williams Park. And so I went down there to see what I could sell them, basically, and ended up running into, at the time, the property manager, but also some of the actors were just sitting around out in the stands, of which were Billy D. Williams, James Earl Jones, and Richard Pryor.
Wow.
So, pretty cool. Got to know all three of them. But with Billy, his son came from California. He was 15 at the time, Corey. And we just hit it off, myself, Billy, and Corey, and ended up that Billy wasn't going to just let Corey just do anything he wanted to, and ended up Billy let Corey work for us because he wanted, if Corey was going to do things, he wanted him to make his own money, earn his own money, which I thought was pretty cool. So he was a loving father while he was making this movie, but he also allowed this young couple with, 75, that's when Melissa was born. So it was the summer. So Melissa was like, 4 or 5 months old. So we had this baby, and he allowed Corey to come be with us, and Corey stayed with us quite a bit. And over the course of the summer, Corey, coming from California, had never had a pair of khakis. So we got him a pair of khakis, hemmed him up. And so he went to work at our store instead of wearing, the paisley bell-bottom jeans that everybody was wearing back then out in California. But a couple of things before I get to the end. He wanted to exercise, so I took him my barbell set and bench so he could bench press to stay strong while he was the pitcher in the movie. He wanted to work out. And then Billy's from New York area city, and then obviously moved to California to act. He had never had homemade ice cream. And so one of my favorite memories is Ponda, as in famous Ponda's recipes. She made peach ice cream. The man had never had peach ice cream, and he's a movie star. And so we made him a container of homemade peach ice cream, took it up to the top floor of I think it was a Hilton back then. And we put the container, the churn of homemade ice cream on the bench from the bench press, and ate homemade peach ice cream with Billy D. Williams in his hotel suite, which I think is pretty dang cool. But then at the end of the movie, we had gotten really close with Corey. He was like a little brother. Subsequently, he was 15. He lived in Atlanta, and we went to his 60th birthday party, by the way, a few years back in Atlanta. So they have what they call a wrap party to wrap up the movie in Macon before they headed to Brunswick or Savannah, someplace, maybe Savannah. And Corey was going back to California. He wasn't going to go with his dad down to Savannah, I believe. So we have the party, and all the celebrities are there, and Billy's taking pictures, and he took a lot of pictures of Ponda because I thought that was pretty cool. He sent them to us later. But so the wrap party's over. We're up at the top of the Hilton. We go down to the street, myself, Ponda, Billy D. Williams, and Corey D. Williams, and Corey gets in the limo to leave. So he hugs his dad, he hugs Ponda, he hugs me, and there's 3 people, myself, Ponda, and Billy D. Williams, hugging and crying each other as Corey leaves. So when you think about stars, and Billy D's pretty dadgum big, he's a loving, caring man, loving, caring husband, and I'll never forget us hugging and crying, if you will, over the relationship that we developed over the summer. That's all I got.
Man, that's awesome. I have never heard of this movie, so I had no idea that this movie was a thing. So I now have something to watch.
I'm going to give you a few things in the movie. One, so it comes on TV occasionally. So like it may not be available for stream, but it'll come on like TBS.
It looks like it's on. It looks like it's currently on Hulu for those.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So what is it? I think is it Rambo that always wants to know on second string of where to stream things? So Rambo, it's on Hulu.
Hulu and YouTube.
Nice. And then as far as like sports movies go, 2 things related to that. There was one time where 680 The Fan, they were talking about like great sports movies, and they brought this one up. I remember like I called in and I was like, no one ever talks about this movie. I can't believe you guys are talking about this movie. Like my parents were extras in this movie. So I had like a sports talk radio moment with that. Then the last thing I'll say is, Will Leach does he's on Waiting since last Saturday, but he also does a movie review podcast. That was one of his first, I think, kind of like loves. He does that with a buddy of his from high school. And they will do like rankings of things. And when they made their top, I can't remember like what number it came in, but they did like, top 25 sports movies of all time or whatever. And like it made their list. So it's a good one. It's a good one. And then the cast is ridiculous.
I was just about to say Billy D. Williams, James Earl Jones, Richard Pryor. You sold it. I don't care what it's about. It could be about watching paint dry.
And I'm blanking on the actor's name, but the guy who played like Apollo's corner man in the Rocky movies, he was in it too, and I cannot remember that guy's name.
Burton, I think, is his last name.
Yeah, so he's in it too. So
they'll be Tony Burton.
Yeah.
Tony Burton, that's him.
Yeah.
Interesting man, I will say that. We can have some off-camera further conversations, because I will tell you, if you think Richard Pryor is funny, he, Lord have mercy. Also, Stan Shaw was his first movie. He was in a couple of pretty big movies after that. Nice young man as well.
Awesome. Let's see. Coach also wanted to know Summer Coob tourney predictions.
Say again?
Summer Coob tournament predictions.
Summer Coob predictions.
Here's I've got one.
I got it.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Jim Wood won't win.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Good.
I'm so bad in the tournament.
Absolute savagery.
It's like my idea, and I'm always out in the first round. I'm horrible in the tournament. I falter under pressure. So.
Yeah, your daughter might win, but
Lily's good. Lily goes really far. Good. Oh yeah, that's a prediction. Lily will go further than I will. Yeah. And then he rounded it out with over under Ponda's famous references while recording. He said it at 25, and I think we're pretty close.
Wow. Ponda's famous.
He's controlling the narrative.
Shenanigans.
I would love for it to go over, Coach, but I don't know. I haven't been counted. That's awesome.
Oh man. Let's see. I've got a couple of more things maybe before we round out. One, Dad, John and I noticed your watch. you've got a very nice watch that you're wearing this evening. So
You mean this watch?
we just wanted to shout out Oxia Time again. Fripp Dog's got one. Fripp Dog loves them. Gotta check them out.
So I will say this. It was an absolute surprise, not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before. Pond and I rarely give each other gifts anymore. We are blessed to have practically everything we would want or need. And on Christmas morning that year, she said, I got you something. And I said, oh, great. She said, but you got me the Santa picture. And I said, okay, that's fair. Okay. So I gave her the very nice Santa painting. I will say that. So I opened it up, and y'all, it was this. I started crying. Okay.
Yeah.
That's national championship. That's
right.
National championship. 40 years in the waiting. I mean, I was around for the first one, but yeah, I got this. I'll never forget it. So yeah.
What did you get inscribed on it? Or what did she get something inscribed on the inside? My
inscription says on my watch, I was able to pull it up quite apropos. You're either elite or you're not. 3318. Love Ponda.
Amazing.
There we go. Oh,
perfect.
Man.
Fonda's famous Christmas gift.
Yes, amazing. Too good. Oh man, this has been fun. This has been good. This has been a long time coming. This is one of those like John, like Jim. Are we having your dad on? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I've been asking him. He's like, I don't know. I feel like he's going to be sitting there with my mom, and they'll be talking to each other.
Oh, so good.
We try awful hard. It's funny. So we have friends our age, and we call, and it is so funny you would say that, John, because it's literally whomever we call, the husband or the wife, you're talking to two people the entire time. So yeah, you're right. That's the way we do things.
Too good. I'm glad. I think like my happiest moment was seeing John experience the stories that I've heard. So hopefully it's similar for those listening. I had a blast experiencing that personally.
Yeah, obviously we've been doing this for a few years. This past year is probably one of my most favorite years as a fan, even though you might think that might be counterintuitive. But for me, I haven't been to as many Georgia games this past year as I have in a long time. And I owe your family a debt of gratitude to hosting and allowing us to partake in the Wood traditions and the Wood experience, if you will. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for allowing me to partake, and just being around you guys is just amazing. So I'm just very blessed to be a part of it and to be around you guys and to know you. And I just really appreciate you coming on and just being a part of this whole experience.
John, that's very kind. Very kind. And Carter had a blast, did he not?
Yes. He's had a blast.
Did you fool him or not?
And when I was surprising him, no, I didn't.
He figured it out.
He figured it out. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Try as I might, they either like read the text messages or mom spills the beans, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. What a wonderful time. What a wonderful time we had. We were so glad to have you guys.
It was fun. I think it was my fault. I think I messed it up. I think you figured it out because of me. I blew it. Too good.
I mean, you name it. We've done it. Like we've all been together. Like we recorded an episode at your house. I ate tacos on the deck.
Yeah, that's true.
You have the code.
I got the code. Yeah.
Too good. All right. Well, maybe we'll transition to the podcast after the podcast, so John can hear the inside scoop on the one thing. But we can probably wrap it up. This one has been a long time coming. It was fun as I expected it to be. Hope everyone enjoyed it. like I said, my Georgia story comes from my mom and dad. I couldn't make it through talking about being at the national championship in Indianapolis with you without crying when we reviewed that game.
Yes.
So it's it runs in the family. It's in our blood, and I don't know. That's about all I got.
That's all she wrote. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.